The Red Bull Rant is an uncensored and unedited podcast. The views expressed in this show are personal and do not reflect the views of others or any affiliated organizations. Welcome to the Red Bull Rant. I'm Jason Ipico.
I'm Pat McDonald.
And I'm Pete Urich.
And this is our special United States men's team preview show, which we did not come up with a name for. We're not coming up with one on the fly for this one. So, if you're watching off our video feed, you will notice that we are in video. Hopefully, this is recording okay. If not, well, then we're not doing video ever again.
Because the last time we did video, I screwed it up as well.
Truman's Pennsylvania internet crashed on him. It was a good time.
Oh yeah. All right, so let's get into talk about it. The big news today is Brian Strauss's, I guess, scathing article, if you want to call it that, of interviews of a bunch of different United States teams players, and basically I'm trying to think of how to exactly word this. I guess the words would be not buying into Klinsmann's way of doing things at this point. Pat, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty fair. There's a good number of players who clearly seem to be, who didn't put their name to it, but clearly seem to be a bit discontent at the moment with how the team is running. Yes, there's no doubt about that. One of the key people was Carlos Bocanegra, and there's just a little bit of a interesting thing that he actually took to his Facebook to kind of respond to the Strauss article. He said, during the last 18 months, Jurgen has introduced a lot of new ideas to the team and has a vision of how he wants to grow the program. Every coach around the world has his own style and methods. He has always been upfront with players about where they need to stand and where he sees them going. Not every player is going to be happy with all the decisions and methods, but he will tell you to your face where you stand. From a coach, that is the best thing you could ask for. One of the greatest strengths of this team has always been our unity and spirit, and we all remain committed to the cause of qualifying for the World Cup. So, considering he was Bocanegra was such a key piece to this article, and how his benching in Honduras led to a lot of this strife, that's I think an interesting response.
What do you think about the comments in Brian's article today?
Well, ultimately, I think it's, a little bit of what Pat was talking about is the change of regime and everything like that. I think the thing is that the U.S. players in general haven't really 100% signed on for what where Jurgen Klinsmann is coming from. Ultimately, he's got a different mindset, and I think the American way of thinking is, oh, I was on the national team for this amount of time, and my spot is kind of set. And he's putting in a whole new outlook on things, and your spot is never set. You're never in a position where you should sit back and know that you're going to be selected. And I don't know if it's just that the guys aren't getting used to it, or, it's change and nobody likes change. So therefore, I think that's where some of this is coming from. The fact that the quotes are mainly anonymous, really, for me, it says right in the article that some of them are from people close to the situation, but that's not directly from players, obviously. So I don't know. I took it for what it was, but I think that ultimately, I think he's the man with the vision, and a lot of this was based on the Honduras failure, and I think that the Honduras failure was more about how Honduras played it. They made it a national holiday, played in the middle of the afternoon. We played with European players who were on jet lag. So ultimately, I think that this is being a little bit blown out of proportion, but we'll see what happens on Friday.
Yeah, I think the biggest shock to me, at least, wasn't so much the player turnover comments. It was more about the comments of before a game that Klinsmann didn't have apparently a set strategy for most of the games that have been played, not just under uh, his time as the coach of the U.S. team, but also as coach in Germany. And I understand he's not technically, I guess, a soccer tactician, if you want to call it that. But just the fact that there's no general way of attacking a game, that there's apparently no set strategy for him, is kind of a little disconcerting, especially when you talk about having to go on the road in CONCACAF, which is not easy places to play at. I mean, that part just seems really baffling to me. It's one thing to say, well, we're going to change the culture and get turnover in players because we need to challenge people to step up. But to not have a strategy just seems a lot more I, absurd to me, if that makes any sense.
And yeah, no, I agree with you. That's the most disconcerting thing. And that all being said, I mean, I think one thing about the article that illustrated was Klinsmann's strengths, which he's tremendous with the media. He took every criticism head on. Everything he said is in many ways correct. Everybody should be battling for their position. He was asked to change the culture dramatically in American soccer, and there's absolutely going to be growing pains. When I finished my Twitter rant, I actually hope to, expand on this idea on Thursday when I do a preview for Empire Soccer. Is would American fans sacrifice the chance to go to Brazil? And I mean, not go at all, if that meant we took two great leaps forward and won in Russia in 2018. And it'd be interesting to see what fans can do. I mean, that is what Klins's strength is. His vision is correct. There was one player who was quoted as saying, "Hey, we don't have this attacking team. We have the counterattacks is what we do well." But U.S. is never going to go anywhere with that strategy. They need to get better, and there are absolutely going to be growing pains. And that's where Klinsmann's right. But when you say, again, the tactician thing, I mean, yeah, Vasquez isn't the guy. He's not. And Klinsmann has been very upfront before about when he's been wrong. He's not doing it with Vasquez at this point. But if they can find a tactician who can, even if you just want to give Vasquez some token role in the team, just to keep him around, keep Klinsmann happy, and just get a real tactician in there to change the culture and make better game day decisions, then this team could go on. Because I mean, Klinsmann's vision is not what's wrong. His ability to handle the media and answer the questions that have come at him with this article have been fantastic. And in the end, if somehow the U.S. gets 6 points out of these next two games, we're going to forget this article was ever written.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, for me, the more indicative thing of the change of culture, one of the things that you're dealing with here is the turnover of people from the old regime to the new regime.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at how the U20 team played in Mexico, totally different story. They look the way that the full national team should and probably will look in a few years. Ultimately, it's a lot easier to get a group of guys like that to turn over to new ideas and everything like that. The full national team, especially a guy, and we all, I don't know if Jason knows, but Pat is well aware of my distaste for Carlos Bocanegra, and I believe it's been long overdue that he get dropped from the national team. But these guys aren't gonna just roll over and start changing the way that they do things. You can't turn a 33, 34-year-old player and just all of a sudden make them change exactly how they do things. And Klinsmann's looking for 24/7 professionals. And at the moment, some of these guys aren't doing it. I think that the guys who have stepped up and tried to do better things with their careers have been rewarded. I mean, Breck Shea is obviously in the lineup. Bocanegra gets dropped. He's in the second division of the Spanish league, and he's not playing. So ultimately, I think the thing is the only thing that I think is concerning to me, and this isn't a major concern, it's a minor concern, is the fact that the culture of the locker room at the moment, because of the German Americans and everything like that, that's a little bit disconcerting that he's not doing a better job of man management. But at the same time, that's still a little bit of the old regime, new regime type of thing where, in 5 years, we're going to be used to seeing, oh, yeah, he was a German born or, born anywhere. We've got Mexican Americans I mean, you look at the U20 team; everybody's last name is Hispanic descent.
Yeah. And
So
I'm glad you brought up the German Americans because I thought that was one criticism someone brought up. An anonymous person saying they were not happy with how they were being treated. I thought it was a little unfair because I mean Fabian Johnson's been very good. Terrence Boyd has does anyone seem more American than that guy? I mean, he bleeds red, white, and blue. I mean, yes, there have been moments when Timmy. I mean, we had the whole Timmy Chandler saga. Jermaine Jones does things that are extremely questionable, but when they were just painted with such a broad brush, I did not think that was very fair of whoever was not man enough to put their name to the comment.
yeah,
All right, so let's move on to the U.S. roster. I know there's a lot of injuries. The two main positions of concern right now are it's got to be goalkeepers and defenders. Talk about the goalkeepers first. We got so called into this was Brad Guzan, who has 5 caps. Sean Johnson and Nick Raimondo both have no caps in the senior team. There was an interesting question from Alexi Laws. I kind of want to hear from you guys. What makes Brad Guzan the automatic starter over, say, Sean Johnson or Raimondo?
Pat, you want to go?
I'll go first. He's playing in a better league. I mean, right there, he's playing in a better league. Makeshift back line. Have you seen Aston Villa play recently? What goalkeeper do you want behind a makeshift back line? You want the guy who has a shit ton of experience behind a makeshift back line. Nick Raimondo is a fantastic veteran. He's going to be your perennial number 3, and that's fine. Sean Johnson, to be honest, after that game against the Red Bulls, I kind of thought maybe Bill Hamid should have gotten called up. I know nobody wants to hear that on the Red Bull rant, but whatever. Don't forget Sean Johnson is the guy who fumbled away the Olympics. So, I think Guzan's got to be the man. He's playing so well, and if he's not the top in saves at the Premier League, because I've read a number, nobody seems to get their stats right online. He's either if he's not the top, he's top 3 in saves in that league because he's just getting pelted today, and that's got to be something to be respected.
I'm with you. I mean, ultimately, the whole entire thing with Guzan versus Raimondo, because I'm holding Sean Johnson out of this, just exactly for the fumble reason. But ultimately, Guzan has the experience, and I've seen Raimondo over the years where one game he's brilliant and turns into this, remarkable keeper, and then other games he's just absolutely worthless. He's very streaky. So ultimately, if I have to choose, I'm going with Guzan because he's a more steady character, and you know what you're getting with Guzan. I don't know what I'm getting with Raimondo. I've seen him fall apart before, so I have much more faith in Guzan, and it's not just because he's in the APL. It's more of a I've seen his work over years, and between the two of them, I just think it's a better thing. I think that the Sean Johnson thing is almost like a confidence booster. Jurgen Klinsmann knows that he's one of the young keepers who needs to be up, and I agree with you totally, Pat, that Hamid after this weekend should have been getting a call up. But Sean Johnson, he made the mistake, and now I'm sure Klinsmann wants to give him a call up to try and keep him in the program and everything like that.
All right. Moving on to the other problem areas of the defenders. Probably, like you said, it's the makeshift back line. So I have to use a sound clip.
Danger zone!
it just seems appropriate with this back line. So right now we'll have Tony Beltran, Matt Beasler, Jeff Cameron, Omar Gonzalez, Clarence Goodson, and Justin Morrow, who, according to USSoccer.com, have a combined 12 starts between them. Yeah, so really going to be a makeshift back line playing Costa Rica and best of all, Mexico in Azteca. I'm guessing that Cameron, Gonzalez, and Goodson have to be the three starters only because they're the only ones that have any experience on
Mhm.
the senior team. But what do you guys think of that group of defenders, and do you think they could somehow pull off some good results here this the next 2 weeks?
Take
Pat
this one. Start off this
Uh,
time.
or
well,
Phoebe?
basically, I mean, I'm a big believer in Gonzalez. I think that he is probably the next Carlos Bocanegra, if you will. He's the next automatic center back on the team sheet. I think that he's the guy that we're going to be looking at over the next few years as the only time he won't be in the team is if he's hurt. Um, Cameron, the only question I have about him is, Stokes been using him in a few different roles. They used him in the midfield a little bit and things like that. So ultimately, I'm a little bit wary of him just because of the fact that he's kind of been played all over the place. But he's still a good center back, and he was, if I'm recalling correctly, in the back with for Mexico when we beat them in Azteca, if I'm
Yeah.
recalling correctly.
Mhm.
And then Goodson, he's solid. He's not the best guy. I feel like Cameron and Gonzalez are a little bit more athletic, but I don't have any problem with Goodson. He's good in the air. He's relatively good with his feet. Um, for the Colorado game, we're going to the game in Colorado versus Costa Rica. Building out of the back is not going to be as much of a worry because of the fact that I think that Costa Rica is going to hang back a little bit. But the Mexico game, that's going to be huge, is how these guys handle pressure. And that's one of the things I really like about Gonzalez is he's not just a big lug like Gooch always was. He is a player. He can play with his feet. Although he's good in the air, he's got a lot of options with his feet as well. So, I'm okay with those guys. The new guys, it's kind of a crapshoot. I don't know enough about Morrow and Beasler. I mean, I've seen Beasler a little bit more just because I've happened to have seen games that he's played in. But I'm not really sold on any one of them. But somebody's got to play back there.
Yeah. I think I'm more or less with you. Considering one of the main criticisms of Strauss's article, and don't get me wrong, I don't expect anything to unnerve Jurgen Klinsmann, but one of the main consistency, you would think that maybe we're going to see Cameron and Gonzalez team up in the middle. That being said, Cameron has received a lot of quality minutes on the right in Stoke City, so you could probably plug him in on the right. And like you said, Goodson has always been solid in the center, so that would be a nice little thing there. Honestly, left back, I think we're going to see DeMarcus Beasley. He did it a little in the last qualifying campaign. He's not an optimal choice there by any stretch of the imagination, but we don't have any of those on this team. I mean, other than that, yeah, you got Morrow, which we'll see. And then you got Breck Shea, who I think Bradley tried out there once or twice, and it was not pretty. So, especially since Beasley is acclimated to the Mexican altitude, I think it just makes sense to put him in at a left back. And he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was also on the field, but a late sub for that upset at Azteca.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
All right, so last thing about the roster, for the forwards, Altidore finally gets called into the team, and you'd have to suspect that he's going to be getting at least one start out of these two games, just given his form for AZ Alkmaar, right? I mean, it's the guy's just been on fire this year. He set the single season record for American abroad in terms of goals. There's no way that Klinsmann can leave him out of these games, is there?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. Ultimately, the whole thing isn't going to be whether Altidore is in. It's kind of going to be who's he going to be paired with.
Mhm.
You know, Dempsey has a slight, I believe it's a calf strain or something like that. I don't know what lineup he's going to end up going with, but I would really like to see, our two most prolific scorers internationally, club wise, get on the field together and try and wreak some havoc in front of Costa Rica. And I just hope that Roy Miller plays left back or right back.
What U.S. fan isn't hoping Roy Miller's on the field on Friday? I mean, wow.
Yeah, that was one of those times when a guy gets an international call up and the team's like, "Yes, please, go. Get out of here.
He's like, "Can I go early?" Yeah, sure, no problem.
We got a
So-
game this weekend. I can stick around." No.
So speaking of Miller, if he gets hurt during these two games, how joyous will the Red Bulls fans be?
I don't think it's really that big of a deal because I can't see him seeing the field again. I almost feel like, and maybe I'm wrong to think this way, but I almost feel like Petke, felt a little bit of allegiance to him because they played together for a while and everything like that. That's about the best thing that I can come up with because, for years now I've been questioning why Roy Miller's out there. And I know that you guys aren't nuts about Connor Lade, but I'm like, at bare minimum,
I think he's
Miller Lade.
Yeah, I think he's better than Miller. Yeah, but going back to the forwards, I think you're gonna see Josie play both games. I think Gomez is at least gonna play. I think he's gonna play in both games, but I think he'll play definitely in Mexico. I think that was a strategy that worked in that friendly. Put as many players who are ready to, who have premier experience on the field, and it paid off. So I think you're gonna see him paired up with Josie. Personally, I think both games. I think you might see Dempsey play left midfield, withdrawn forward, something along those lines. I do think he'll start because I recall last year when they played in Jamaica, he was coming off an injury as well and was by no means 90 minutes fit, but Klinsmann threw him out there anyway. So I think you'll see him start. But yeah, it'll be, you know what? It's Klinsmann. Who the hell knows exactly what he's going to do? But I think those are a couple of guys you will see on the field at some point or for most of both qualifiers.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys picked up on this or not, but Brad Davis got added to the national team.
I didn't see that.
He got added to the roster. What's that?
Who got replaced?
I'm not sure who got dropped. I didn't get a chance to read the article yet. I'm talking to you guys, so.
Okay. Breaking news.
Let's see.
Yes, I just broke a new story.
Let's see. According to USsoccer.com, let's see. It doesn't look like he actually took anybody off the roster. Yeah, because
is it one of those
goalkeepers? What was that?
You know how he's done that before? He leaves Ramondo home. They let him play, and they'll just call him up in absolute emergencies.
And that could be a possibility, but going into camp, they added Davis without dropping anybody. So,
yeah, okay.
I mean, it's possible, like you said, when they travel, that they won't be taking their third keeper with them, and it would kind of make sense because very rarely do you need a third keeper, even at home. So, so now let's talk about the games. The first one, Friday, March 22nd, taking on Costa Rica. It's 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll be on ESPN. Pat, I know you will be in Denver.
I'll be in Denver, Colorado for Dick's Sporting Village Park. It'll be good times. Try not to freeze.
Yeah. So, Pat, since you're going, we'll let you go first for this one. What do you expect to see on Friday?
Honest God, I expect the U.S. to win. I despite all the cards stacked against them, I do expect the United States to win. Costa Rica, as good as they are, they're just not. I mean, you can say the same thing about Honduras, but they're not as talented as the U.S. And coming from some of them are acclimated to the cold, but the cold. There's a very specific reason you play a game in Denver. It's because it's cold, high altitude, which will get them prepared for Mexico, and it's the same reason they played in Honduras played in San Pedro Sula is because the heat affected the European-based players. The cold's going to affect a lot of the Costa Rican players. So I do expect to win, despite all the patchwork, despite all the panic and everything. I think the U.S. will. I think Josie Altidore might finally have his international breaking out party. I really do, and personally see this one going down 2-1 for the U.S.
I'm thinking basically along the same lines, despite all the patchwork and all that stuff, I am relatively confident in this game. And ultimately, I think what we're going to see here is kind of a changing of the guard a little bit
Mhm.
with regards to, the back four. You don't have Cherundolo. You don't have Bocanegra. I don't have a problem with Cherundolo. I have a problem with Bocanegra. But ultimately, I don't think that you're going to see Bocanegra again in a U.S. national team meaningful game. He may get a friendly call up here and there, but I think that this is going to signify kind of a changing of the guard with the back line, especially. And I think that you're actually going to see what a little bit of what Jurgen Klinsmann wants to do. I think you're going to start to see that we're going to be more attacking style, especially at home, especially in a stadium that we handpicked for many reasons. I'm just hoping that it comes true. Every time I get confident, that's when we really stink.
Yeah.
During the Honduras game, one of my buddies and I, were watching the game at the same time, texting each other, and the first goal goes in, and it's like let the floodgates open, and then it's no, the floodgates are closed,
Yeah.
and it just falls apart. But you know, I think that this was a strategic thing for us with regards to the altitude and everything, and I think that we're going to start to see a lot of what Jurgen Klinsmann wants to come around.
Yeah, definitely expecting to see some the home cooking do the team some good. And I think it was a smart choice played out to not necessarily for Costa Rica just because when they go into Azteca that that's at altitude also it lets them get acclimated. Let's them avoid the trap that most teams would fall into going into Mexico. Um, for the game, I like Pat said, I kind of expected Josie to kind of make this a breakout game for him. But I think that it's going to be a breakout game for the rest of the team too. I mean, we've been waiting the better part of 19 months to really see uh, I guess, the beautiful soccer that Klinsman's been advertising, and finally start to see some goals come out of this. And so I think Outdoor will get a brace, maybe another one for Dempsey, and see this team finally hopefully put its foot down on an opponent and just absolutely destroy somebody. So I'm gonna go with the very bold 3-0 prediction for this game. Uh, give Gazan a shutout for his first time back in a while. And then on March 26th, which is the Tuesday after, the U.S. heads down to Mexico for a 10:30 p.m. start time. The game's also on ESPN because ESPN somehow got all of the Mexico games. This is the only one being sports does not have for some reason. Yeah, it's definitely a money issue. But you know what? I'm actually kind of glad because it means I don't have to worry about finding a totally legal internet stream to watch this game.
Hey, Fives gets BN Sport in April. I'm excited.
Well, April's not March 26th. You have
Yeah,
to
well, I'm
find.
just saying. I gotta wait another month. Whatever.
Yeah. So Pete, you can go first this time. What do you think the team's going to do when they head down to Mexico?
Um, this is a tough one. I'd almost like to wait and hold back my prediction until after I see what we get on Friday. But I'm confident. I think we're gonna get a draw out of it. I think that as much as Mexico has had a fortress down there with Azteca, I just get the feeling that we're going to pull something together. And with the way that the U.S. Under 20 team played down there and everything, I realized it wasn't Azteca and it wasn't a full stadium, and the band really didn't throw them off as much as you might have hoped. And Mexico ended up winning on a bicycle kick. But anyway, I think that they're going to be strong enough. The back four is going to have one game under their belt together. They're going to have a little bit of confidence, and they know that they're going into you know the Devil's Cauldron. They know that they're going into one of the worst places in the world to play. And Cameron's got experience there. a lot of these guys now have that experience, and I think that it's almost like a pride issue. They've gone there once and done it. I think they can go out there and get a result. Not a win, but I think a tie is definitely a positive result out of that game.
One thing, going back to this Strauss article real quickly, is that it's going to do one or two things. It's going to expose everything and everything's going to fall apart, or it's going to rally everyone around the team, say, no, this is crap. We want to win this World Cup. We don't care who our coach is. We don't care who the guy next to me is. We want to win. And that's one thing that can unite any team. And, applying that to this game, look back to the team that won that friendly. It was maybe a B plus squad. I mean, to share the soundbite from Best Damn Soccer, or no, I'm sorry, Best Soccer Show. They don't have damn in their title. Michael frickin' Orozco Fiscal. I mean, that guy was on the field, and it's the same thing. I think it's going to be a pride thing, like Pete said, and God help me, I'm going 1-0. Lock it up, United States wins in Azteca for the first time in World Cup qualifying. Calling it Red Bull rant. That's where it's happening.
That's even more bold than my 3-0 prediction over Costa Rica. That's how bold that is. I'm not. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. I was going to just say, surprisingly, I don't know if you guys realized that the Outside the Lines on ESPN actually did a thing on the U.S. soccer team and this Strauss thing, and Alexi Lawless and Twellman both chimed in on it. And one thing that Alexi was saying was that the U.S. team has a tendency to play well when nothing is expected of them, when expectations are low. And Twellman kind of came back at him a little bit and said, well, the expectations aren't low. And I think that Twellman's actually right, that this is the first time that we're going into a World Cup qualifying with the expectation, not only that we're supposed to qualify, but we're also supposed to win every single game. And, a loss to a team like Honduras is a huge disappointment. We have scraped through basically every qualification that we've had since 1990. It's not like we are blowing through CONCACAF every single World Cup qualifying. We're usually scraping through either one or two with Mexico, and it's never been a cakewalk. And that's what people are expecting. And the problem is if we were 3 years into Klinsmann being the coach, I think that we would be at that position. But we're still in a transitional period where he's still, the new coach, whatever you want to call it, and we're still going through a lot of changeover. And I think that's why we're running into some of these results. And I don't think it's really indicative 100% of where we're going to be when we hit the World Cup in 2014. And like you said earlier, would we trade going to 2014 for a win in 2018? And as a U.S. soccer fan, I know that I would make that trade if I knew I was going to get the payoff in the end. Obviously you don't get to make those bets, but I really think that he is a man with the right type of plan, and I just hope that the impatience of the U.S. fan is not going to overtake everything and just say, well, we're supposed to be doing this or we're supposed to be doing that. We've never done that before. Why are you expecting things to be different all of a sudden? Is it because you're expecting too much of Jurgen too quickly? I think that might be it.
What, United States fans have too high expectations? I mean, come on. We're the most realistic nation in the world. What are you talking about?
We have high expectations for everything but soccer.
Yeah, the country instant gratification has high expectations. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be as bold as Pat and say that we're going to win it. It just, unless I see like a 4-0, 5-0 win out of them in Costa Rica against Costa Rica, they're not going to. I don't expect them to go in and hold their own. I mean, let me phrase that: not go in and beat Mexico. I think they'll go in and hold their own and come out with the draw. The old CONCACAF special, if you want to call it that. Maybe a 1-1 draw. 0-0 probably better for us just because to shut out Mexico at home would be a huge motivational boost for the team. But I'll be happy just settling for a draw, whether it's 0-0, 1-1, whatever. As long as we come out of Mexico with a point, I'm happy. So
I actually think a hard fought battle against Costa Rica does us more good than a blowout. I think that overconfidence is one of the things that the U.S. teams have a tendency to do from time to time. We start believing in our own publicity and we believe we're better than we are. I mean, I think we were ranked like ninth in the world at one point, and then we dropped a weak game to, I don't even remember who it was. It was that unimportant of a game. So we have a tendency to do that. So I think that a hard fought 2-1, if Pat gets his druthers, 2-1 victory versus Costa Rica still says to us we've got to work hard in order to get a result in Mexico. And I think that if we come out and blow out Costa Rica, we're going to get blown out in Mexico City.
And to say about Mexico, I mean, we look at our loss to Honduras and we think the sky is falling. Our U.S. soccer is in shambles. Everything, it's all over. But we don't pause for a half a second and look at the draw with Jamaica at Estadio Azteca. And really, when you measure them, one with the other, what's really worse? I mean, us losing in the cauldron that is Honduras, where the most dangerous city in the world, by the way, if you recall from the lead up to that game, or Mexico blowing the possibility to get 3 points against a Jamaica side that is quite simply not as good as Mexico. So I think they're just as vulnerable as we are, and it's a matter
Dean
of
Richards.
yeah, oh yeah. He's tearing it up in championship right now, isn't he? Yeah, whatever. So I don't think they're the juggernaut everyone made them out to be after they beat us in the Gold Cup years ago.
no, although I am not for this year, but I am a little worried with the. I mean, I guess I was kind of worried with the U20 performance, not from our end, but just from how good Mexico looked. Um, I mean, I get it. Our U20 team put up a hell of a fight, and the only reason they didn't win that tournament was because, in my opinion, the referee in the final. That's the reason they didn't win that game.
Exactly.
So, what I'm talking about is the way Mexico looked in that game. I know not all the U20 players are going to make the senior team. That just never happens. I mean, you're always going to have players that will keep those other guys out. But the Mexico U20 team showed that they're going to have depth in the next few cycles. And I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about the United States, but the fact that we're growing and Mexico is growing also, it just means that things are not going to get any easier in CONCACAF. And like P said, maybe it's a good thing if it doesn't, because then we're forced to grow. We're forced to keep improving ourselves. Where if we blow everybody out, then we just get complacent.
Yeah, the thing is the Mexican FA, whatever they call it, but they're like 3 to 4 years ahead of us. They started to revamp their youth program 3 to 4 years ago, or 3 to 4 years before we did, and basically right now, the U.S. obviously we're going to be in a position where we're going to start reaping the benefits of some of the changes that are happening with Claudio Reyna and the U.S. curriculum and all the stuff that's going on underneath the scenes. And I know that you guys don't coach youth or anything like that, but these are some of the things that I see on as a youth coach, that the landscape of youth development is changing, and therefore in a few years that's going to translate to the full national team getting better and everything like that. So it's a process, and Mexico is 4 years ahead of us or 3 years ahead of us, and it's not surprising that their U20 team was that good. The fact that ours is as good as it is was actually kind of not surprising, but it was reassuring.
Yeah. All right. So, any last thing you guys want to talk about the United States men's team before we wrap this up?
I got nothing.
All right.
Well,
I got this bitchin' Centennial Edition track jacket.
mm-hmm.
So,
I
I'm just going to show off my digs.
I gotta admit, I really love that crest, and I kind of wish that we would make that our permanent one. Only because the one we have now is so 1990s, it just bothers the crap out of me.
Yeah,
But
the problem is that one has too many stars on it. You can't actually you're actually only supposed to get stars when you win a World Cup. That's why ours has 3 for the women. It's unfortunate, but the women have
yeah.
all of the World Cup wins.
They do. I'll take it.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I guess at this point you just take what you can get. All right. So to wrap up, visit our website, redbullrant.wordpress.com. You can email us, redbullrant@gmail.com. You can call us, 973-348-5329. On Twitter, the show's handle is at Red Bull Rant. Mine's at Dr. Stooge. Pat's at PMACD82. Truman, who couldn't be here tonight, is at the Truman. Pete is, and I gotta look it up because I don't remember the exact spelling, at PHURYK7. Sorry, it's I don't say that much. It's Pat and Truman. I say it every goddamn show, so it's ingrained in my head at this point.
I'm not that important.
It's just that you're relatively new. That's what it is. I mean, I've been saying Pat and Truman's for the last year and a month now, so it's in there. It's not going anywhere. Follow us on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, and if you want the video version that is on iTunes, Stitcher does not do video. All right. So, any last thing to say before we call this a night?
Let's bring home 6 points and shut up all the people who were too chicken to put their name on the Strauss article.
Go USA, yes.
Yeah. So for myself, Pete, and Pat, thank you for tuning in, and like Pete said, go USA.
Lights.